It's Friday the 13th, spooky season, and we've got some rumors going around for Kyle Tucker. Will the Phillies be able to lock him in, or will they not and fall short to a team like the Cubs? Plus, we've got some updates from CHGO Cubs as Cody DelMendo is joining us today, and more updates around the Hot Stove and Phillies trivia coming your way. All that and more today on this Friday the 13th edition of PHLY Phillies podcast. We've got more Major League Baseball updates, rumors, hot stove to dive into today. Happy end of the week. Happy Friday the 13th. We've got JP Zapata, Tyler Zulli, myself, Renee Washington. No fanfare for you guys today.
Yeah,
Sorry.
way more subdued.
I can't give you
Friday,
exciting
Renee.
intros. It's okay. Do you want me to give you a Friday version of an
it's
intro?
okay. You don't
thanks.
have to do that.
I'm just making sure.
No, it's all right.
And we've got plenty of updates to get into because now that we are looking ahead for the Phillies, one name in particular, Kyle Tucker, has been one heavily discussed around the Phillies community. And we've got some reported offers that we'll dive into from the Cubs, but also allegedly from the Phillies. We have some updates around just in general, some other names that possibly keep an eye on because there are some other guys out there outside of just one or two that could be good fits for the Phillies. And of course, we have random trivia. But before that, we do have Cody DelMendo joining us from CHGO Cubs. And I feel like we're on the brink of some breaking news, which would be exciting because I feel like every day we've had from Juan Soto to Max Fried to Garrett Crochet. It feels like every day this week there's been something that's broken that's been exciting, and I would expect Friday to be the same because as teams have come out of the winter meetings, the conversations have continued around trade talks. We've got plenty of trade talk and discussion going on in the chat, guys. But how are we feeling on this Friday? We're feeling like I know you even said it. You feel like a breaking news tweet, post, something's come out today, happen. Even like during the show.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen shortly. So here's the thing. I think, and I'm not going to we're not going to play in this, hidden conversation forever. The conversation surrounds the Cubs and Kyle Tucker, right? And well, that's the biggest conversation piece of the day. I think one of two things are going to happen. The Cubs are going to acquire Kyle Tucker in the next 48 hours, or the Cubs will never acquire Kyle Tucker. And I don't mean that in the free agent market. I mean that in the next 12 calendar months it's 8 calendar months while you can trade for him. It just feels like this thing is coming closer and closer to fruition for the Cubs. And what does that mean for the Phillies? It means, well, they're probably not going to be involved in that conversation much longer. I think if Kyle Tucker gets moved this weekend, he's going to be a Cub. Yeah. If he doesn't get moved this weekend, then I think it opens up the conversation to everybody else again.
It does. And so here's the latest that we have heard because there have been some reported offers and rumors around Kyle Tucker. Obviously, the all-star outfielder is a very exciting piece of, for any team that's looking to have a major league ready outfielder you can add to your roster. Also, someone that's going to come in that gives you great offensive production, gives you good defensive play. And so the Cubs allegedly were asked for a Seiya Suzuki, Isaac Paredes, and a prospect in a deal for Kyle Tucker. Those are two names, Paredes and Suzuki specifically, that the Astros have been targeting. That came out. Ken Rosenthal, Chandler Rome, various reports indicated that. And allegedly, that deal hasn't been enough. Of course, the Astros are not only looking to get a good haul in return for Kyle Tucker, but knowing that they may not be able to retain Alex Bregman in free agency this year, there's also plans for them to try to, make some infield moves so they can have a backup option for Bregman. So that was one thing that we heard come out yesterday. And my initial thought was, if that is what the Cubs offered, I don't think the Phillies can match that. I don't think realistically they have the pieces. They'd be open to moving. They have the pieces. That's not the issue. I saw on Twitter people throw out names from Nick Castellanos to Alec Bohm to Brandon Marsh to Ranger Suarez to Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford, even Mick Abel was thrown in there. So many different names have been thrown out. But the reality is, I think as Dave Dombrowski mentioned and we talked about yesterday, they're not going to just impulsively jump at any trade just to make a trade. Would Kyle Tucker be a great fit for the Phillies? Absolutely. But who would make the most sense to move on from for the Phillies? Because you don't want to give up too much to get Tucker in return. So that's something that we had heard yesterday. And then as of today, Jim Bowden did say on MLB Network Radio this morning, the Phillies allegedly offered Nick Castellanos, Alec Bohm in return for Kyle Tucker, and the Astros declined that offer. So that's the latest on where we are right now as of this moment with Kyle Tucker. And now it makes me wonder and lead right into our Ace Hardware attempt check of the day, as you can get started on your next project with Ace Hardware Home Services.com to get started on anything with our friends at Ace Hardware project-wise. What will it take for the Phillies to acquire Kyle Tucker? We know what the Cubs have allegedly offered. We know what Jim Bowden mentioned the Phillies offered. The Astros did not budge on either. They clearly want more. And for the Phillies, it's a large ask. But if we're going to live in this world of hypotheticals, let's dive in deeper. What would it take, Tyler? What are your thoughts on all of this, I should even say?
Divine intervention. The hand of God to come down and help them make this trade. And I don't say that just to be funny. Like, I just don't think the Phillies and the Astros are going to, and listen, we've talked about, like, if you have the means to acquire Kyle Tucker, like, you make the lineup work. Like, you're not worried about the overly heavy lefty lineup. Like, because Kyle Tucker's an elite player, like, you make it work for whatever the lineup construction would be. You can't have too many good players, right? So you figure that portion out. But the portion of actually acquiring Kyle Tucker, I think, becomes really, really difficult because, as you brought up, Nick Castellanos and Alec Bohm were reportedly offered to the Astros for Kyle Tucker. The Astros, in my opinion, wisely said no, because I think there's a handful of things that go into play here, right? The two to tango, the Venn diagram, whatever cliche you want to talk about. So if the Astros are looking to get premier return for Kyle Tucker, which tells me that they don't believe they can re-sign him next offseason.
Correct.
They still have been in conversations with Alex Bregman for a contract extension with him. It doesn't, to me, make a ton of sense to acquire a 32, about to be 33-year-old Nick Castellanos, who is going to make $20 million next year and is going to make $20 million the following year if you're looking to kind of devoid yourself of monetary investments because you're just taking from here and putting to here.
Right.
I also just don't think the return is enough for the type of player that Kyle Tucker is. Alec Bohm is a good third baseman. We've talked about the merits of Alec Bohm remaining with the Phillies, this year and into the next year too, especially with the arbitration numbers being what they are. Alec Bohm is a good third baseman. Do the Astros believe Alec Bohm and Nick Castellanos is better than re-signing Alex Bregman and making a deal with the Cubs or making a deal with a separate team? I don't think the Astros take that offer entirely seriously. I think the Phillies take that offer seriously, thinking we're giving you two major league players for the chance at 1 year of a better major league player than both of those two guys. But I don't think the Astros look at that offer and view it as enough. I think they're looking for major league ready players, which is why the Cubs conversation comes into play. But I think they also are going to try to get a premier prospect that I don't know if the Phillies are willing to move. Are the Phillies willing to move Aiden Miller? Are the Phillies, they've made it known they're willing to move Justin Crawford, but I don't think that return is enough. Are the Phillies willing to move Aiden Miller in this deal? Because it sure seems like the Cubs specifically are willing to move at least Cam Smith and potentially Matt Shaw.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's not a cheap trade. You're going to have to give up a lot to get Kyle Tucker in return.
Correct.
And that's what every single report
and as they should, by the way, because he's an elite level player.
And so the other part of this, I know it was, as we discussed, with Kyle Tucker having 1 year left before he hits free agency, he is projected to get at least $300 million on the market. But as we know, the market every year substantially increases. So it probably is more realistic around $350 to $400 million that he would be expected to get paid after the 2025 season. Now, I do know that reports came out, I believe it was John Heyman that said it, that whoever does bring in Kyle Tucker is not expected to extend him. So it is looking also like it's a 1-year move for Kyle Tucker, which we've seen in the past. Mookie Betts, Juan Soto, names that have been that 1 year and then they hit the free agency market and they move on. So that's the other reality, is how much are you realistically willing to spend for Kyle Tucker, knowing you may only get Kyle Tucker for 1 year and not be able to afford him? Would the Phillies be open to paying $350, $400 million for Kyle Tucker in 2026? I don't think so. That's the bigger issue, I think. Beyond, it's like, who would you realistically trade, but how would the Phillies actually be able to retain him after 2026?
Sure, that's the better piece of the conversation. When Jon Heyman says the extension's not happening, it doesn't mean that like Kyle Tucker's just going to say bleep you, I'm not signing wherever I get traded to. What that means is you saw the formula work for Juan. Now, listen, Juan Soto turned down $450 million, bet on himself, and won and made an extra $300+ million. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying Kyle Tucker's going to get $765 million.
No, but he's going to get paid.
But the formula is, if I sign the extension now and you give me X amount of dollars, or how about I come play in Philly or Chicago or wherever the case may be, I go play for a season, I ball out, I make an all-star team, I make I get MVP type votes, whatever the case may be, and I earn myself an extra $100 million.
Exactly.
That's the strategy. And I think that's what Jon Heyman's referring to, is there's no rush for Kyle Tucker to sign an extension. Now, he is coming off the weird injury, the leg, shin, whatever the heck it was, injury, that maybe there's a slight momentary pause to say maybe I should sign the extension if this injury is problematic. If it's not, if he's full tilt, he's ready to go, there's absolutely no reason for Kyle Tucker not to bet on himself, under the expectation of this guy hit, 26 home runs in 280 at-bats last year? 23 home runs in 280 at-bats last year. If he gets 600 at-bats, 650 at-bats, he theoretically should be a 35 to 40 home run guy. He hit 270-something last year. His OBP is good. His whiff rates are good. His chase rates are good. All of those baseball savant metrics we talked about yesterday, they're all in the red for a reason. He's a darn good baseball player. So I would imagine that the deal would be, or that the conversation piece would be, I'm betting on myself.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because for Kyle Tucker, again, just 28 years old, in January he turns 28, coming off of a season where he had a broken shin in 2024 and still finished with 289, 408, 585 splits. As you mentioned, 23 home runs, 11 steals in only 78 games. He had more walks at 56 than strikeouts, and he missed substantial time but still finished with a 4.7 WAR for the fourth straight season. At least a 4.7 WAR for the fourth straight season. Kyle Tucker absolutely can take advantage of 2025 being that get-back year, increase his stock value. As you mentioned, the model has been shown that players can take advantage of 1 year left on your contract, go to one market where you can now be healthy, have a strong season, and then expect to get paid the following year. So there's multiple variables, because the Astros are obviously looking for a haul return. They are looking for a corner infielder, especially knowing they probably can't retain Alex Bregman. They are also looking for major league ready players. They're also looking for a potentially their pitcher or an outfielder. They've got a lot they're wanting. And then they know, because of how much Kyle Tucker is going to cost in 2026, the reason why they want to trade him now is to get a lot in return for him. So you're going to give up a lot to trade for him now. And I know in the chat it was brought up about like JT and Kyle Schwarber. So you have to give up a lot to trade for him now and be planning to give up a lot to keep him in 2026. To me, I don't think it makes sense on any of those levels. If one of the two were correct, so if he could be someone that you trade for him this season, he's got a few years left on his deal, and you can retain him for a couple of years, okay, maybe. But the 1 year and then $350 to $400 million price point makes Kyle Tucker someone that's as tremendously talented as he is. I don't think it's realistic for the Phillies, just knowing how Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies operate. Now, I do want to hit on some names that were brought up, because really quickly, I know you guys are sharing some thoughts on who you feel like should be included. I saw, as Jason Martinez was saying, Andrew Painter, absolutely not. Agreed. An untouchable for sure. But someone like a Mick Abel's not going to get the job done. I know Crawford's been brought up. Ray is saying, what about Bohm, Casty, Crawford, and Abel? Are the Phillies interested in offering that, and would the Astros accept it? The thing that I keep going back to is, if the Phillies offered Bohm and Crawford for Crochet, like, I don't see them being open to giving up 3 or 4 guys, including prospects, for anyone. Like, I think that Crochet offer kind of mirrors what they're willing to give up. We're okay with giving up 2 guys, maybe if this Castellanos Bohm offer is real, again, that's 2. Again, I just feel like they're not wanting to move on from too many quantity players because you don't want to have to tap too much into the farm system and into too much of your current rostered guys. I think 2 is kind of like a 2 for 1 is feeling like what their max is realistically.
Well, so to go back to the conversation about like the upper echelon willingness of the Kyle Tucker trade. And I don't necessarily think it's a willingness. I think it's an ability. Like, maybe it is slightly a willingness with your elite top prospects, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about Painter and Miller specifically, and probably just Painter specifically. But I think it's not necessarily a willingness to do X, Y, and Z. It's an ability to do X, Y, and Z. Like, are you able to move at least 1 major league player, probably 2, and then, so it's either 1 major league player and an upper echelon prospect, or 2 major league players and an upper echelon prospect and a mid-tier prospect. Like, if you put all of those abilities together, I don't think the Phillies have the ability to move major league ready players or major league now players, major league ready players, and prospects in the waiting, right? So I don't think that the Phillies are in a weird spot where they have the ability to trade prospects. They've shown that they're not going to willingly move the top at least 2, and definitively the top 1, right, in Andrew Painter. I'm not so sure the Phillies this offseason are going to make the splashy move that a lot of fans are hoping for.
Yeah.
And many people are clamoring for. Because I think while, yes, Dave Dombrowski has the moniker of like, watch the world burn type of GM, because he did it in Boston, he did it in Detroit, and he went scorched earth in those 2 cities. And it took a little bit of time. It took a lot of time for Detroit to rebuild, and took a little bit of time for Boston to rebuild. I think Phillies fans are thinking, did he lose his fastball? Does he have a little bit of an edge gone? I think this is more of preservation of the long-term, roster construction and franchise construction. But I don't think the Phillies are willing to part with everything in the conversation that is required of Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, and I know also another name that was added in as a potential trade piece for Kyle Tucker is to include Christopher Sanchez. Again, it's just to me, it doesn't make sense to give up 3 or 4 guys, especially if you're talking 3 of them that are major league ready now. A deal around like Alec Bohm, Christopher Sanchez, Mick Abel's not enough.
Listen,
so stop throwing Mick Abel. Everybody keeps throwing Mick Abel.
You can throw Mick Abel's name in every trade conversation that you want. And listen, I will say this: I think every team, every pitching coach, every general manager, every team believes that they could be the team that fixes a guy, right? "Quote unquote" fixes a guy. Mick Abel's stuff is real.
Yeah.
Mick Abel's control sucks, and it's sucked across multiple platforms now. So, like, do teams want to see it first, right, before they make the move? Do teams so to me, I don't believe Mick Abel has trade value in the hypothetical realm. I don't know if Mick Abel has as much trade value as a lot of people believe he does in the tangible realm. And to me, like, if I were a GM, now maybe I play it too conservatively, and there maybe fans, if Tyler Zulli was the GM, would look at Tyler Zulli and say, now I'm talking in the third person, would say,
what's happening?
He allows too many moves to pass him by. He waits to win too many trades. It's like the Danny Ainge thing, except Danny Ainge won a lot of his trades, right? But like, if I were the GM of another team, I don't know how much trade value I would put into I can be the one to fix this guy, right? Like the command has been a question mark everywhere he goes. The walks are a problem. The whip is a problem. The command is a problem. The stuff's there. So like, what is the value of Mick Abel across Major League Baseball? I really don't know the answer to that question. Yeah. Like, how do I value him and how do GMs value him could be wildly different. And maybe it's why I'm sitting in this chair and not in somebody's front office.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And just to hit on some others, I know you mama, great name. You're saying Tucker's going to the Cubs, Bellinger to the Yanks. I know.
I think both of those things are true. I just don't know when they happen.
Yeah, I know. It's over, period. Another great YouTube name. You're saying Tucker won't go to Philly. Forget it. Fair. And I know Beyond the Bank as well as Steven Garrison, you guys have tons of different trade prospects that are possibilities that you're throwing out there. And Matt Carr is saying you would make a trade for Kyle Tucker only if the Phillies would be able to extend him. So that
A lot of people have said that.
That is the key. And I know Jason Martinez said the same thing. The contingency for me would be if you are bringing in Kyle Tucker, it's with the expectation to keep him. You wouldn't give up, especially if you're giving up like a Nick Castellanos, Alec Bohm trade for Kyle Tucker, shouldn't be with the expectation that Kyle Tucker is going to just be here for one season. It should be that he is a piece that you're adding for the future, for, you know, an extension that you're going to lock in to be able to afford to pay him. The other reality that we haven't hit on is if he does get the extension for a team like the Phillies, if you're now paying him $350 to $400, what does that do for the Bryce Harpers, Trey Turners, the guys that now their contracts they might look back on and say, wait a minute, if you can afford to pay him that, I want to have a new conversation about my contract.
And that's where
so that's the other variable we actually haven't talked about. The Phillies kind of are limited in, even it was the same situation with Juan Soto. If you're going to pay that much for a player and your big dogs are not getting paid as much, Bryce Harper and Trey Turner especially, now here comes Scott Boras calling you. Here they come trying to revisit their contracts. And I know it was also discussed about revisiting Bryce Harper at right field, which we've talked about. I think the Phillies, to me, to sum it all up in this temp check, whatever they do, you need to make changes, but this can't be an overhaul that drastically causes you to change too many things. I think there is such thing as too much movement. And if you have too many moving parts, too many moving pieces, it almost is counterproductive. They have to have one or two big impact now pieces in whoever they're bringing in, instead of we're going to change up the entire formula and move Nick Castellanos to left field and move Bryce Harper back to right field and bring in a Christian Walker or Pete Alonso, whoever first base. And now you're changing then maybe you're changing the pitching staff. They don't need that many changes. They need one or two quality changes of players they are adding into the roster that don't require you to shake the entire ship up.
So totally. In my absolute MLB The Show mindset on this, there is only one scenario, and this is how I feel about this, how I felt about it last year, and how I feel about it heading into this year. There's only one scenario in which I would willingly move Bryce Harper back to the outfield, and that is if you find a first baseman with both pop and a better defensive first baseman than Bryce Harper. And you know how many players I come on to that fit both of that mold, that they're both a better defensive first baseman than Bryce Harper and somebody who can hit for pop? One guy. One guy. His name's Christian Walker. Anybody else?
Yep.
I'm not moving Bryce. I think Bryce Harper's a very good defensive first baseman. And I think that play, while yes, like if you move Harper back to left or back to the outfield, maybe it's left or right, whatever it is, and you acquire a first baseman who can hit a little bit, like sure, it might round out your lineup a little bit more. I think you're going to get less Bryce Harper if you move him to the outfield. Mm-hmm. And I think you're going to get less longevity out of Bryce Harper if you move him back to the outfield.
Yeah, obviously Christian Walker is a name that has been discussed and someone that the Yankees and the Diamondbacks are allegedly making a priority to try to pursue. If that were to be the case that the Phillies brought in a Christian Walker, now we're having a different conversation. But let's have a different conversation and talk to you about some of our friends here at PHLY and take a quick pause. Let me tell you about Empire Today, the place you can go to get any flooring that you need and know that you have a reliable, trusted company that's supporting you. With Empire Today, they pride themselves on a few different values. It's a shop-at-home convenience. They're providing you with the right products for your needs, quick and professional installation, as well as a price match guarantee. Empire Today, with their virtual floor designer, gives you the flexibility and the convenience and the comfort of knowing you can shop from home, snap a picture of any room that you're looking to get new flooring in, and see how that new floor would look in your space. So it does get overwhelming when you're at the store and you're walking up and down the aisles and see all these various floor options to try to picture how that would look in your living room. How does it work in your kitchen with your backsplash and appliances? How does it match, your bathroom and the different tiling? There's so many different factors you have to weigh. And with the virtual floor designer, it takes some of those and makes it a little simpler for you. So again, with that, you can easily snap a picture and see how those new floors would look in your space. Also, they just minimize any sort of stress around shopping for flooring because they really pride themselves on convenience and great support. They want to find what works best for you, for your budget, for your home, and helping you make an informed decision so you feel confident with whichever floor you decide to get. Not to mention, Empire Today also allows you to service your own warranties through them. So if an issue does come up, you don't have to worry about going and tracking down a manufacturer's phone number. You'd be able to reach out straight through Empire Today. So today, you have a chance to schedule a free in-home estimate, and all listeners can also receive $350 off as a discount when you use promo code PHLY. Again, some restrictions do apply, but check them out at empiretoday.com/PHLY for more details.
And you can hang out with our friends over at Ace Hardware. Listen, you know the fact that Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks, but did you know it's also the place with the helpful hardware home service, because they want to bring helpful home, the helpful that you love, in-store right to your front door. Listen, you got a leaky pipe, got an air conditioning problem this summer that you want to get fixed before summer comes back. Maybe it's a little too late to fix I guess it's not too late to fix your heat. If you're having heating problems, you should probably get on that. Hang out with our friends at Ace, and they'll be able to help you out as well. Because listen, anything that you need done in your house, from something as small as a faucet fix to something as large as heating, cooling, those type of repairs, plumbing, they have the trusted pros that will help you keep your home humming all year long. And it's never too early to start your home project for the summer. As I said, maybe it is air conditioning. Ace is the place, not only with the helpful hardware folks, but the place with the helpful hardware home services as well. And if you're like me and you can't do anything, sorry, it's just I'm terrible at handiwork. You got to hang out with our friends over at Ace. They will get you covered on your next project. So visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project today.
All right, well, before we have Cody DelMendo joining us from CHGO, I want to quickly hit on another name that's been surfacing around the league. That's Luis Castillo. Now, the Mariners have reported that they have had a lot of interest coming their way for Luis Castillo, and even so much that they stayed back in Dallas for a little bit to have some more conversations. And so there are multiple sources that have been reaching out, and there's a higher volume of calls apparently for Luis Castillo since Garrett Crochet and Max Fried's deal. More people are interested in Castillo, and there's a few reasons. Now, he does have a no trade clause, so of course he would have to that have to be waived. He'd have to be informed before the Mariners moved on from him. Seattle is looking to bring in an infielder. They are looking for some pieces that the Phillies actually could have to make a trade. And also, for the Mariners specifically, they're looking to keep their starting rotation intact, but they also have been open and having conversations. So with Luis Castillo specifically, he's one that we have talked about here on the show. He's someone that has 3 years, $73 million remaining. He's going to turn 32. Actually on the verge of turning 32 like this week. And so he's someone that seems like the more logical option for them to move in comparison to like a Logan Gilbert, George Kirby. So it seems as though the Cubs, Phillies, Orioles, and Yankees have been teams that have been brought up as good trade options for Castillo, because as we know with the Phillies, they are looking for that fifth starter. And then you would be able to, get a good, reasonably priced Castillo that could fit into your rotation. I know we've talked about it, Tyler, but apparently people are not hanging up about Luis Castillo. That's what the reports have indicated. Would you be interested in a trade with Seattle to acquire Luis Castillo?
I like Luis Castillo. I think he's a very good pitcher. I've liked him for a long time. I liked him in Cincinnati, and I think it was a good move to move to Seattle. Spacious ballpark, a park where, he keeps the ball in the yard. And, he not a super high ground ball rate, but, is in the 43rd-ish percentile. Mm-hmm. Good stuff. ERA at sub-3 a couple seasons ago. He's been at about 3.3 and 3.6 each of the last 2 years. Decent whip. The strikeout numbers were off the charts last year, 219 strikeouts in 197 innings. This year, he was about a strikeout per inning guy. I like Luis Castillo a lot. What I don't like about Luis Castillo, mm-hmm. especially considering the monetary conversations we've had about the Phillies, is the $24 million he's owed over the next couple of seasons. 24.1 in 25, in 26, in 27, and a vesting option in 28 for $25 million. Before he becomes an unrestricted free agent in 29, he'll be 36 years old. Your Zach Wheeler contract kicks in this year. Mm-hmm. You are a team that is talking about being up against your financial cap, being up against the apron. whatever that next tax threshold is.
Sure.
I would love to acquire a pitcher of the like of Luis Castillo. You can never have too many good starting pitching. And I understand the flaw within the Phillies' downfall last year was the fact that they hit a $186 in 4 postseason games against the Mets. The starting pitching, for the most part, for the Phillies was very good. It kept them in every game, I believe, over those 4 games. Zach Wheeler was excellent. Ranger Suarez gave you more than you could have asked for, especially considering how much he struggled down the stretch. I don't believe there's a fatal flaw in the Phillies, starting rotation. Of course, you'd love to not have Taijuan Walker pitch, but Taijuan Walker is a sunk cost for you unless you get somebody to eat a bulk of the salary, which I don't foresee being the case. I think the Phillies do bring in another starting pitcher. I just don't think it's a high salary cap monetary starting pitcher. Like, if they go and make a deal, I'm not sure it surpasses like a guy making $12 to $15 million a year. I don't think they hit the $24 million threshold unless the team that they're trading with, a la Seattle in this case, is going to take some money back. And I know Seattle doesn't want to spend a ton of money. It's why they're looking to actively shop Luis Castillo. I would be surprised if the Phillies are the team that ends up acquiring Castillo. I do think he gets moved.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Seattle loves his money. But I think that the Phillies are not in that monetary position.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is Luis Castillo, statistically, you talked about the numbers, a 3.64 ERA last season, 11-12 record, was able to play in 30 games, and as you said, pitched just over 175 innings with a 1.17 whip. But as he just celebrated a birthday yesterday, which I knew was coming up, so happy belated to Luis Castillo, just turned 32 yesterday. Welcome to 32. It's a great age. He also is the cheaper and more movable option of their rotation, which is the reality for Seattle, especially as you mentioned, that's around that $73 million remaining on his 3 years left with the Mariners. So given the current market for starting pitching, when you look at the 2-year $67 million deal for Luis Severino, the 3-year $75 million for Nathan Eovaldi,
everybody's
the
$218
million 8-year deal for Max Fried, Blake Snell's $182 million 5-year deal. He is someone that's more affordable, and it is an expensive market out there. And so when you look at these trades, there's a lot of factors to keep in mind of how the market is also projected to continue to increase.
And
but
one
I
thing,
do,
really,
yeah, go ahead.
Really quickly before we bring Cody on, the one thing I will say is, numerically speaking, and we brought up like 3.3 and 3.6, they're fine ERAs. But when you dive kind of into the more nuanced stuff, the barrel rates, the hard hit rates, I think Luis Castillo's stuff is trending in the wrong direction. I'm not going to sit here and say he's bad. Like, please don't take that from what I just said. But his stuff is trending in the wrong direction. His fastball usage has shot through the roof while his velocity has dipped. He's gone from 29% fastball usage in 21 to 45% fastball usage in 22, 97.1 average a couple years ago to 95.6 last year. His hard hit percentage is going in the wrong direction. His barrel rates really have plummeted in the last 2 years. He's not inducing nearly as many ground balls as he was in 22 and 21. I think he's a good pitcher. I just think with the money that he is owed and those things feeling to me like they're going the wrong way, I'm not sure the Phillies are going to be invested in this particular trade market.
I know. Well, the trade market is booming. We do have to get into the Cubs Astros trade, but first, let's take a quick pause before we bring in our buddy Cody, just to talk some business here at PHLY. Let me tell you about TrueMark Financial Credit Union, the place you can go to prepare your kids and teens for the real world, giving them some hands-on money skills. That's right. Saving, earning, even having a debit card so they can make purchases themselves, tracking their spending. And the Greenlight app is through the TrueMark Financial Credit Union. It's changing the game. And it just allows your kids and teens to get hands-on experience, learning how to manage their finances and learning how to be more responsible. Now, the great thing about it is if you are a member of TrueMark Financial Credit Union, it's actually free for you to sign your kids and teens up for their Greenlight account through TrueMark. It just gives the peace of mind, the independence, the confidence, and even the freedom to help them make smart decisions on their own with their money. And then you, as their parent, get a chance to actually coach them because you can see what they're doing. You can help them make good decisions, and you can also essentially give them kind of a playbook and be able to work them through how they're spending their money. So it allows you to give your kids a great gift this holiday season of financial responsibility. And again, it is free if you are a member of TrueMark Financial Credit Union. So in this holiday season, if you're looking for the gift that keeps on giving, it's being financially responsible, something everyone needs to learn at any point in life. It's never too young to get started. And we all know how hard it is to figure that out without proper coaching. So with the Greenlight account, you get that proper coaching and you can help get signed up today to get your kids started. So if you are interested in getting signed up today, visit truemark.com/greenlight for more information.
Yeah, and obviously the holidays are right around the corner. As soon as this show's over, Renee, I'm going to head on out and do some Christmas shopping
here, Tyler.
For my family and friends. But one of the things about the holidays, it means that you are stressed out because you're doing those things and you're visiting family and you're cooking and you're getting ready for the holidays. Well, sometimes you let the fact that you need some good, healthy meals slip away. That's what happens with our friends or that's not going to happen with our friends over at HelloFresh, because at HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes that are delivered right to your door. You don't have to worry about going grocery shopping. You don't have to worry about what you're going to buy. And by the way, have I said it enough? I still have a newborn at home. I don't want to cook. I don't want to clean. I don't want to do anything except spend some time with my buddy. But you have to, because you have to eat, right? So HelloFresh has helped me since he's been born. I don't have to worry about going to the grocery store nearly as much. I get these pre-packaged, pre-portioned meals that are just as easy to make and eat, and I get to spend more time with the little guy and my wife. There's always something for you to enjoy at HelloFresh as well. They have 50 chef-crafted recipes to choose from each and every week, and a ton of customizable options that fit every dietary, budgetary, and what you like to eat restrictions. So if you head on over to, you can get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/PHLY Phillies. That is HelloFresh.com free Phillies. Let's start this over again. 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/free Phillies. Applied across 7 boxes. New subscribers only. It varies by plans. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/free Phillies. You can get started on some great, delicious, delivered to your home meals with HelloFresh.
All right, well, without further ado, for the second time in 2 weeks, let's welcome on our buddy from CHGO Cubs, Cody DelMendo. Happy Friday the 13th, Cody. You're always rocking some great Christmas gear. I love it because it is the holiday season, Tyler. We're not starting it. It started. But this holiday season, I feel like you guys have been getting lots of gifts of exciting updates, rumors, and some things to talk about that optimistically could happen for the Cubs. Now, obviously, we have you here for a reason, Cody. It's because of the Kyle Tucker talks for the Cubs and the fact that the Cubs have been asked for Seiya Suzuki. They've been asked for Cam Smith. They've been asked for Isaac Paredes, a prospect. What's the latest that you know of about the Astros Cubs possible deal that's being worked out? Because it feels like we're on the brink of it breaking and getting solidified, but it also doesn't feel like they're that. I don't know how close they are realistically to a deal.
Yeah. Well, first off, Tyler, when you were reading the HelloFresh ad, I was thinking the same thing because I've just been so invested to refreshing Twitter over the last 4 days that HelloFresh really would have helped me out. Yeah, it's very helpful. Yeah, so Bruce Levine, who's a reporter here in Chicago, he tweeted today that this potential trade for Kyle Tucker could involve Isaac Paredes and the Cubs' first-round pick from this past year's draft, Cam Smith, a third baseman out of Florida State. And both those guys have been kind of part of the rumor for the last week. And honestly, like, I was just in here with you guys like a week ago. We were talking about Seiya Suzuki coming to the Phillies potentially, and I didn't think that Seiya Suzuki was really on the trade market. I didn't take it seriously at all. And then at the winter meetings, his name was thrown out there a bunch. His agent said a bunch of stuff that I don't really know if I should take it seriously or not. And if you guys want to get into that, we can. But as far as this Kyle Tucker trade, I think it's going to happen today. I think it's going to happen today. Last night there was a reporter out of Houston that said that it should happen within the next 48 hours. Like sometime yesterday, he tweeted that. So I think it happens today. And it's a 1 year. It's technically a 1 year rental. The Cubs don't have a history of giving out massive contracts, and I think that's why a lot of Cubs fans have a lot of anxiety is the best way I would put towards it, or concern into a trade like this. Because if you're trading one of your top 100 prospects, which Cam Smith is, for 1 year Kyle Tucker, and you're also sending your third baseman Paredes, who has multiple years of control, and he's cheap, he's not expensive. You just traded for him at the trade deadline last season. If you're trading both of that for 1 year of Kyle Tucker, I can understand the concern from that, from a Cubs fan perspective. I will say, though, that considering all the rumors that have come out related to this, the fact that I never thought that the Cubs would send Seiya Suzuki, Cam Smith. I never thought they would send Seiya Suzuki and Matt Shaw in a deal like this. I really didn't think that they would even budge on sending Cam Smith. And I absolutely didn't think they would budge on sending Matt Shaw. But maybe this is the compromise. Maybe the Cubs will throw in another one of their, major league arms, kind of like that are kind of like in that swingman role for them, guys who come out of the bullpen and can start for them, like a Jordan Wicks or a Javier Assad or Ben Brown or Hayden Wesneski. And I think one of those 4 names could potentially be added to this trade. As I wouldn't call it a throw-in, because I think those guys have solid upside and can be valuable for any major league team. But yeah, I never thought the Cubs would really include Seiya Suzuki or Matt Shaw into this. So Cam Smith, a couple years away. We'll see if it happens. I will say, I saw you guys quote tweet this earlier. The fact that the Phillies offered Castellanos and Alec Bohm for Tucker, I am surprised the Astros were not interested in that. I really am, just because it seems like they want to stay competitive. Those guys are a lot more proven and experienced than this deal that the Cubs are offering.
So, Cody, the last time you talked to us, you said, can you have Kyle Schwarber back? So you brought up Ben Brown. Before I get to the question, I'll give you David Robertson back if we can have Ben Brown back, because that was one of the poorer trades the Phillies have made over the last couple of years. But to me, it's I was looking at the deal and the names involved from the Cubs side and the Astros side, and I kind of nerded out over Isaac Paredes, because I've been a big Isaac Paredes fan for a while now. And I know numerically speaking, he had a little bit of a dip last year. It feels to me, if he's in the deal and it is Cam Smith, or it is whatever the other outlier pieces, I shouldn't say outlier pieces, but the other pieces are, this feels to me like it could be a win-win move for both clubs, because Kyle Tucker provides instantaneous, immediate offense for the Cubs. They don't have to move Matt Shaw, and he could. You seem pretty high on Matt Shaw playing third base. And I looked at Isaac Paredes' home runs last year, and I don't think I've ever seen a player hook the foul pole more in my life. He might kill it with the Crawford boxes in Houston. Does it feel to you like this could be one of those moves that it could potentially turn out to be a win-win for both clubs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be a win-win for sure if the Cubs can find a way to keep Tucker long-term. I've read online that his agency like Jed Hoyer has like a good relationship with that agency, that he is under. Maybe like everyone thinks that he's going to go to free agency next winter, and I would lean to that. I would bet that, right? But who knows? Maybe things change the moment the trade happens. And also, like, when his agent goes out and says that he's going to free agency next season, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's fact, considering they don't want to give away leverage. You know what I mean? So in these trade talks. So I don't know. I would I lean that it happens in season or before the season? No, I definitely think that they'll go to free agency next winter, and I'll be refreshing Twitter like I am today, and in hopes to seeing a breaking news: Cubs re-sign Kyle Tucker to 10 plus year deal, $300 to $400 million is what I would guess it will be, and he's coming off a 5 to 7 WAR season, somewhere in that range, hopefully, and he's an all-star, and then he helps the Cubs get in the playoffs next year, and all the things that I've been dreaming about, that if they get this deal done. But yeah, no, I think the Astros could really, even with this deal, I like this deal more so than some of the other ones that have been thrown out there. As much as I like Cam Smith, it's not like he's going to be with the Astros next year. It's definitely, you got to see, his minor league career has barely even begun. He had a home run streak in the minors last year. I think that's why a lot of Cubs fans like him, a home run streak in terms of home runs in a certain amount of games. I can't remember how many exactly it was, but he kind of burst on the scene the moment he was drafted and was put into the minors. But as you guys probably know, prospects are prospects. You never know how they're going to pan out. But he has a high ceiling, I think, and like that's why I've kind of been hugging him a little bit. But I also know the Cubs they're not far away from being a real competitive team, at least be able to win their division. And Kyle Tucker certainly makes that it could make that a reality, especially in the division that they're in. So, yeah, what you're talking about with Paredes, that's something too. Like, I can't believe Paredes actually, like a team out there really wants Paredes, but I understand why the Astros could, just because I think his spray chart certainly benefits to the ballpark they play in. And that was a big concern of not only me, but other fans for the Cubs whenever they made that trade for Paredes last year at the trade deadline. So, and in many ways, the fans were kind of right, because his offense really wasn't there at home in the second half of the season. His home and away splits, it was night and day, honestly. So, yeah, if this plays out like with those two, I certainly do think it could be a win-win.
Yeah, and something, Cody, as you've touched on, just looking at the offer that we've heard reported for the Cubs versus the Phillies, I think also the Cubs just makes more sense in why they'd be willing to move on. Seiya Suzuki, for example, him, and as his agent Joel Wolf mentioned, he wants to be an everyday outfielder instead of being a DH, which we saw him in both roles for the Cubs last season. On the other hand, for Isaac Paredes, as you've talked about, does open up that space for Matt Shaw, whereas with like a Nick Castellanos, Alec Bohm, there's not nearly as much openness and willingness to want to move on from either of them, let alone both of them. But the other reality is for the Cubs, and you actually mentioned this last time you were on the show, where the Cubs are and where the Phillies are in very different spaces right now as clubs. The Cubs are in a more dire, I won't say desperate, but a more dire situation of needing to make a big move to be a playoff team, to be a team that's top of the division, whereas the Phillies are in a unique spot of already a playoff team, and the next step is deeper runs into the postseason and a World Series title. So because of that dire need for the Cubs, how aggressive do you feel like they really are going to be to lock in this deal, not only to make it happen, but as you mentioned, and as reports are indicating, to get that done ASAP? Because the longer this stretches out, similar to what we saw with Garrett Crochet and the Phillies, the less optimistic I am that the Cubs are going to land Kyle Tucker. I think the quicker they can get this done, the more it obviously works in your favor. Otherwise, the Red Sox, even the Phillies, other teams, I think are going to come creeping in. How aggressive do you anticipate the Cubs are going to be to lock this deal in a sense of urgency for getting this Kyle Tucker deal done?
Yeah, again, I will be shocked if it's not done by the end of today. I will be shocked if it's not done by the end of today. Now, if something, as a Cubs fan, we've seen a lot of crazy things that don't go our way in my life. So anything is possible, guys. But I do think that it's more likely to happen before the end of the day. And it like, I know you got, I know the reported deal that you guys sent, and I don't know the one the Red Sox sent. I just feel like that the Cubs have had the leverage in this deal with the Astros the entire time, because it just feels like they don't want to make the same mistake that they did with Alex Bregman last year, because he was going into a walk year, and now they're trying to get, if this deal goes through, they're gonna have Paredes, who plays third base. Seems like it's a replacement for Alex Bregman. If they really bent a hole on not re-signing Bregman, or I don't even know where Bregman is leaning right now, what team he wants, or what team he's leaning to, because I just don't know enough about his market. But it just seems like they don't want to get that contract extension done with Kyle Tucker. So I think that they want to get this deal done and move on. So I think that the fact that the Cubs have the leverage here, and I think they have the best deal in terms of how much the players are getting back are going to cost, and the potential at the same time, I think that the Cubs have the better deal. But the one that you guys sent, I guess just first reaction, I was like, wow, for a team that is saying that they want to continue to compete, I am surprised that they didn't look at that more. Maybe I don't know enough about Bohm, or at least Bohm. He was an all-star last year, so I'm like, why are you not more interested in him? But maybe there's something I don't know.
So one last one for me, Cody, and you seem pretty adamant that this might happen very, very quickly. What's your like now we're good line? Like, and I guess on top of that, how much does your now we're good differ from Jed Hoyer's now we're good? If you know what I mean.
Well, when Rosenthal put out that article a few days ago saying that the Cubs and the Astros were talking, and the Astros were interested in Seiya Suzuki, Cam Smith, and Isaac Paredes, my immediate reaction was like, "Wow, we're going to flip Christopher Morel for Kyle Tucker." Because Christopher Morel is part of the Paredes deal. So I'm completely I think everyone's completely fine with Paredes going. And I talked a little bit about the spray chart and all that, and like the benefits that he would probably have at Minute Maid Park compared to Wrigley Field. And that's a big reason why. As far as the rest, like Seiya Suzuki, if you were to include Seiya Suzuki in that deal for Kyle Tucker, it wouldn't make sense to me because you're taking your best offensive bat and flipping him for Tucker. When you from a fan perspective, I don't know if they will find a way to give that contract extension to Tucker. So to me, it just doesn't make sense unless they were just like, we're gonna put Seiya in this deal, and then we're going to give one of our outfield prospects an opportunity. As you guys probably would realize after my conversation with you last week, I think that's a losing mentality, and that's not something a big market team, the Chicago Cubs, should be doing. But that's a whole nother conversation we can have. So that's why I wouldn't have included Seiya Suzuki in that deal. He's at 2 years left. He's with like $38 million over the next 2 years. That's really a team friendly deal, And then Matt Shaw's their top prospect. Who can play third base, can play second base. If you wanted Seiya Suzuki, you weren't getting Matt Shaw. And it's like the same thing with Cam Smith. If you wanted Seiya Suzuki, you're not getting Cam Smith either. So to me, it was like one or the other at the very least. Like a compromise on one or the other when it came to Seiya Suzuki or one of the prospects. So that's why the reported deal this morning from Bruce Levine saying Paredes and Cam Smith and nothing else, I'm fine with. I like Cam Smith, but again, the Cubs have 7 other top 100 prospects that I think they're very high on too. And Shaw can play third base because it opens up a spot with Paredes going in this deal. And then you potentially don't have to trade Nico Horner either. I can get past it, especially since Smith probably won't debut for another couple of years. So I guess for me, we're good is Paredes, Seiya Suzuki, or Seiya Suzuki and Matt Shaw or Cam Smith, one of those two. Like I would not have done the prospect and Seiya Suzuki, and especially for just 1 year. If you could have pulled out the crystal ball, Tyler, and told me that the Cubs were going to get the contract extension done within 48 hours after the trade, if you could pull out the crystal ball and tell me that it would have got done and it would be obviously a multi-year deal, then yeah, I think I'd be a little bit more acceptable on that. But I just don't see that happening, And I think this next season will be all about showing Kyle Tucker that this organization's trying to win and get back to our glory days of 2015 through 2018 and pack Wrigley Field and play October baseball and all this stuff. I hope. I'm actually begging. No.
That's fair. Oh, Cody,
yeah, that's a long-winded answer, but I think you guys understand where I'm at.
Yep.
Yes. No, that makes complete sense. The Cubs are in a position of needing to be a team that can be back to winning more than 85 games, be a playoff team. So there is obviously a little bit higher of a reach that you're willing to go for who you're willing to move, but there is still a line. You're not desperate. You're not bottom of the barrel. You still want to protect the team as a whole with whoever you're adding. So Cody, thank you so much for taking time to join us. Hopefully you're doing an emergency pod later today around a Cubs Astros trade. I keep refreshing my updates as well, like trying to see when it's going to happen. I could see it happening today. And if not, I'm a little nervous for you guys. So thank you as always. Have a great weekend and hopefully enjoy your nice emergency podcast with the Kyle Tucker trade. All right.
Appreciate you, Cody.
I know we had a lot of conversation in the chat I want to hit on before we get into our trivia One, I want to clarify, the Cubs haven't made the playoffs since 2020, and they haven't won more than 85 games, and they actually haven't won a playoff game since 2017. So they're not a playoff team. The Phillies have been in the playoffs 3 consecutive seasons, even though they regressed each year. And I'm not saying they're a lock in to be a playoff team in 2025, but they're coming off of a playoff season. So I think the Cubs are in a different space. And if anybody doesn't see that, then that's on you. They're clearly in a different space than where the Phillies are going into this offseason of what they need and how much they're willing to move to acquire that need.
Yeah, and I think we talked about like the trade value and this, and this, right? Talking about prospects, money, Major League ready players. Yeah. The Cubs have 8 top 100 prospects, as Cody brought up.
Exactly.
They have 7 others if they move one of these guys. The Phillies have 4,
so
which is better than it was a few years ago. But the Phillies have 4 right now, and if one of them is absolutely untouchable, right? Andrew Painter, you're not moving hell or high water. You're not moving Andrew Painter. You really have 3 that you can operate with, and one is a glove first, elite level glove first. But like, what's his ceiling? Actually, let me rephrase that. What's his floor as a major league hitter? Because I know his glove plays. I think he could go and play 162 games of shortstop in the major leagues and win a Gold Glove. I think he's that good defensively. Yeah. I'm talking about Starlin Caba, by the way. I don't know if he can hit at the major league level yet. So he's a guy who's still a what if. Then you have Justin Crawford, who looks like to be consistently just rising through the ranks. What is a guy who has what we feel to be limited pop parlay into a major league career? I think he's a very excellent player. Does he ever get to 12 to 15 home runs in the major league level? I don't know. So you're really talking about Aiden Miller and Andrew Painter, and if one of them's off the table, you're talking about Aiden Miller. And for now, as like a headliner of a deal. Yeah. And
that's another reality. They have it's a very limited core group of prospects. Teams do not want, and I'm not going to say never ever, but they're less likely to want to deal for a Mick Abel or anybody outside those top 4 that we just mentioned. Outside of after Starlin Caba, when you look at the rest of the potential,
the only other one.
Yes, but he's also one that you essentially need because he's a catcher. And so when you're looking at the future for the Phillies, you do want to hold on to him. But anybody else, Griffin Burkholder, Devin Saltaban, Rincones, any of those players, they're not someone that's going to be a flashy move that's going to, especially a Kyle Tucker type of a trade.
You bring up Burkholder and then like Dante Nori too. Like these are guys that were drafted recently.
That's the thing.
Like, and I understand Cam Smith is in the conversation for this trade, but when I talk about moving guys that were traded or drafted recently, if you're not like the premier high school player, the level of availability of a college player like Cam Smith coming from Florida State versus high school players is entirely different to me.
Yeah, and then the other reality, I know it was asked in the question earlier about and it was Moment of Zendo that was asking about Alec Bohm, and I know it started a whole conversation about why is Alec Bohm being brought up so much. Well, much like we talked about with the prospects and the reality around the limitations there, the Phillies are limited in who they can move. I know people have mentioned Ranger Suarez. I'm not quite sure why you'd be so quick to want to move on from Ranger Suarez. If him and Christopher Sanchez are the Phillies' 3 and 4 pitchers with their postseason pedigree alone of what they can bring, in addition to the numbers we've seen. I mean, we're talking about Ranger Suarez that was looking like a Cy Young candidate in the first half of the season, even though he had a regression afterwards. So to me, those aren't players that you should be so readily able to move on from. The Phillies are also just limited financially. You have someone like Alec Bohm, who you have under club control for 2 more years through 2026. He's someone that there's more potential to move because of the financial burden, whereas someone like a Nick Castellanos, and definitely if you're looking at JT, Trey, Kyle, any player like that, they're not moving them, A, and B, financially, it doesn't make sense because no one's going to take on their contracts. That's why Taijuan Walker's not able to be moved. No one's taking on Taijuan Walker's contract. So it's not just about who do the Phillies want to get rid of because you want to upgrade from Taijuan Walker or you want to move on from a guy. Other teams have to want them. Other teams have to be able to pay them. So there are other factors that you have to keep in mind when it comes to trades. It's not just about let's get rid of all the guys that don't fit with the Phillies. So the trades are a little bit hairier. It's not as simple as here's our baggage, take it so we can be better. Both teams have to agree and be open to it. And Alec Bohm is just more movable in that sense. But before we wrap up the show with our trivia for the day, because this conversation's been fantastic around the Phillies and what's possible, I want to say thank you to our diehards. Thanks for tuning in on this Friday the 13th episode. There's a lot to talk about with the Phillies because the reality is there are limitations around their roster construction, finances and the salary ceiling that they have and limitations. So what they do is difficult. And we're going to continue talking about it. So thank you for tuning in across Roku and all of our TV platforms. You can head on over to allphly.com for our trivia and as we wrap up the show. But Tyler, I know you wanted to hit on that as well regarding just the roster construction overall. The Phillies are handcuffed. They're limited in what they realistically can do. So Alec Bohm, it's not even anything about his all-star season he had or even his emotions, in my opinion. And Rob Thompson even come out and said, we don't have a problem with Alec Bohm. We're not shopping him, but teams are interested in him because teams can't afford Alec Bohm. They can't afford some of the other Phillies players.
Well, and that's why we talked about it a couple of days ago. Like, if Alec Bohm is your starting third baseman next year, I wouldn't be shocked. And it's not like this dreadful thing that Alec Bohm is your starting third baseman next year. He's a good player. I don't think he's as good as his April, May, and June indicated, and I don't think he's as bad as his August and September and into the playoffs indicated. I think he's somewhere in between. He's a good gaps hitter, limited upside on the power, but I think that was kind of expected for him to tap out about high teens to low 20s. His glove has improved to be, I think he's a slightly above league average in terms of like outs above replacement and out and defensive run saved and things like that. He's a fine everyday third baseman. And so I think we have to come to some kind of middle ground where like Alec Bohm doesn't stink and Alec Bohm is not worth his weight in gold either in terms of a trade value. Like Alec Bohm's a good everyday third baseman. That I think is a fair point to be at, right?
Yeah.
Like, so to me, if you want to move Alec Bohm, it's because you're upgrading somewhere else. It's not just because there was this meltdown or perceived meltdown in the postseason. I understand that frustrates people. I understand he got benched in a postseason game because he was kind of being a little immature. But I think in terms of productivity on the field, if you're moving Alec Bohm, you're doing it because you're getting better somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. And so Alec Bohm and even Nick Castellanos are two of the guys that you could move. Braden Marsh is another one, but have you heard anybody asking about Braden Marsh? No.
Not particularly. And his contract's good, too. It's actually really good.
But we haven't heard anybody that's interested in Braden Marsh. It's been Alec Bohm and even Ranger Suarez. And I understand why teams would be interested in Ranger Suarez, but there are just very few players that the Phillies can realistically trade. And I know you guys in the chat are talking, like you, Mama, mentioned, package the baggage with something else and trade it for someone else's baggage, a package or something. Like, that's where the Phillies are going to have to be creative. And we're going to be talking a lot this offseason and waiting a lot this offseason. I think that's the reality. I'm not thrilled about it either. I know it was mentioned in the chat about everybody else is doing something. Spectral Paranormal saying, we're not doing anything. We're not getting better. Seems to be a common
theme for Phillies fans.
I feel that too. I'm also disappointed, and I also would love to see the Phillies do more. But I think we're going to sadly have to be patient and wait because it's going to take them some time to be creative. But let's also take this time to distract ourselves with some trivia because it's a great opportunity as we wrap up the show and wrap up the week to get into some Phillies trivia. Yesterday, Tyler got it in 2 guesses because Tyler plays this game an immaculate grid and all these things for fun. And I can honestly say I do not. But together, between us and you guys in the chat,
you're not committed to the job, Renee. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm not committed to the job, apparently. I'm not a baseball or sports junkie in that sense. I watch every game, but I don't play every game. I don't know
what to tell you.
That's on me.
That's what they're saying.
I gotta do better.
That's what the rumors are.
I gotta be better.
According to Jeff Passan, you don't pay attention enough.
I gotta step up my game. All right, let's step up our game with some trivia, team. I hope you guys are all ready. We'll continue our trade talk on Monday. But for now, JP, who is our random Phillies trivia of the day? What's the person looking like? Or just give us the name, because you know what? Why not?
It's a pitcher.
It is a pitcher. Woo!
We know Tyler's going to get this in like 2 seconds.
Okay, so dang it, I'm the silhouette expert. You took my job.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the first hint is that they have had a 5-year career all with Philly. Oh, gosh. I feel like Tyler's going to know it already. It's a pitcher. This is someone from the 2000s and now. It's kind of like a long. Look at the the back leg of how their pitching form is. It's giving me some height. I don't see hair or anything. That's all I got for the silhouette.
This is my question: is it an active player?
That's what I'm wondering and feeling like because that's.
I don't.
It could technically be an.
I don't know.
Player.
Maybe it's not. All right.
Give me a. I'm like. I'm motioning to JP. Give me a sign.
Give me a sign.
JP, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Can you throw our little box up there?
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Just the reason I do that is so people can see if you're cheating, Renee.
Oh my god!
That's why I do it. That's why I put you guys up there.
For me, I don't.
Oh, for all of you, but you mostly.
Okay. That's just rude.
See if people see that you're cheating.
As I was, because I was like hinting at JP, like, give me a sign. They're not paying attention to us. Okay, let's try to get this on the first try. Let's do this. We can do this. 5-year career, all with Philly. Now, we don't know if the career is over or not.
Right. 5-year career.
Kyle Kendrick's been brought up by Steven Garrison. So short career. Let's think of like.
It's a right-handed pitcher.
It does look right-handed. I do see that. I'm not even going to argue that. Again, I look at like the torso and the legs, like it's giving me slender, long build. Thank you, JP.
That I can do.
All right, I'm just going to take a guess because I don't know the answer to this question.
What?
Is it? I'm going to go Jake Thompson.
No, it's not.
I think he pitched elsewhere. But that was the only name that
Don Brown's been brought up. You said.
Well, it's definitively a pitcher.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not Don Brown.
Yes. Oh, yes, pitcher. It is a pitcher. It could be a reliever. We don't know that. That's a great point, Steven.
It could also be an active player.
It could be an active player. It could be a reliever. Soft thrower, Mopar is saying. Okay, maybe we do need a second hint. Let's go to the second hint.
I will say the picture definitely looks in better quality than yesterday's.
Because it's
just
a more
little
recent
bit,
guy.
huh?
Yes.
Oh, it's definitely a more recent player.
Okay, I definitely was getting that vibe.
Right, so you want the next clue?
Great job of the blurred out background.
Please.
Looks really artsy. Okay, let's go to the next one.
I hope you understand.
So it stayed in Major League Baseball for 5 more years, but was never called up.
Okay, so he had a 5-year career as a Major League pitcher with Philadelphia, and then had a 5-year professional career.
I feel like
that he was never called up again.
Just bounced around and never got called up.
Ooh, okay.
I think
never got called up.
Zach Eflin. Short strides when brought up. Dominguez.
It is a short stride.
No.
See, I keep wanting to. So this to me says we're probably thinking about a guy post like the big years.
Right. I was thinking like 2011. 2012?
Yeah, I would
like maybe
think
more 2012, 2013,
It's probably post the big years. Maybe he was in it a little bit.
That's what I was thinking,
but
in it a
I
little
think it's
at the
probably,
end of it.
Yeah, probably like towards the lesser years.
I'm going to go... Antonio Bastardo got brought up, but I thought we did him already. Didn't we do him on time?
I don't think we did. Bastardo was a lefty too, wasn't he? Is this
I don't remember.
I don't think I'm gonna. Is this Vance Worley?
No.
That's a bad guess. It's the only name that kept coming to my head.
Is this? Oh, I wonder. This is nerve-wracking. I feel like we should be able to get this one, guys. I have faith in us.
Am I throwing you guys off?
It's not.
I would just make a guess at this point.
It's not a guy like a David Buchanan.
No.
What about
David Buchanan was with the Phillies minor league team this year. He was in the minor league system.
I know, but he hasn't been called up.
Yeah,
I don't know how long it's been, though.
Worley,
I don't know the years on him.
Worley pitched somewhere else. I forget if he was in Pittsburgh or Baltimore. He was somewhere else.
What a...
I would say take a guess. We need... Because we got to go.
Justin DeFratis.
know if this is DeFreitas or not.
Renee's right.
Am I right?
Renee got it.
Wow.
Let's freaking go!
Well done.
That's right.
I got 2 right this week. Oh my God, I'm getting better at this game, guys.
Yeah, sure. You only kind of cheated.
No, I have names and then I confirm that they're real.
Trash.
Because I'm like the first one I had was
I believe it.
The first one I had was David Dahl, and I'm like, no, that's not who I'm thinking. I was picturing Buchanan. Anyways, all right. The third
Buchanan
hint
was
was
a good
drafted in the 11th round in 2007, and then the final
Well done.
hint was played community
I
college.
had no idea he
ball.
played at
Go
community
me.
college.
Go me.
There he is.
Well done.
Go me.
It's part of the Cliff Lee deal.
I mean, go us. I'm
No,
sorry.
you got it. You got it right. It's well done. Yeah, so DeFreitas was part of
Oh
the
my.
Cliff Lee deal that sent Lee to Seattle, I believe.
Wait.
Is that correct, JP?
So
It was him, Tyson Gillies,
So I can tell you right now.
and Philippe Almont, I believe.
Yeah, so he went to Seattle. Yep, you're right. And then he got traded to Texas.
Well done. Let's go, Paul.
Then signed as a free agent at Washington.
I'm not playing this game ever again because I guessed it before Tyler did.
Well done.
Justin DeFreitas for the win, guys. That's who it was. Everyone's still like, who? Justin DeFreitas.
Yeah,
he was a reliever.
DeFreitas pitched a lot of innings.
Steven Garrison's
Under that.
comment about it could be a relief pitcher is what was like getting the ball rolling.
Well, so we were talking about like the post good years. Like,
Yes.
he was in that time frame, right?
So he was
2012 to
2011
2017?
and 2015.
Okay.
So he was those 5 seasons from
Yeah,
that stretch.
well done.
So he is our answer for today. Oh my goodness.
There you go.
Well done.
I did throw.
I mean, how much
That was a good one,
how much
JP.
kudos do you want, Renee? I've already said well done and congratulations like 15 times.
To be fair, Renee, I was trying to throw off Tyler. But
No, you did good. You did good.
It was excellent work.
JP came up with this one because our goal was Mopar. We intentionally had to stump Tyler. Tyler's too good at this game, so we had to go with someone that Tyler would not think about. So
good work.
holy moly! On that
Michael
note,
Stutz, what a pull.
wow, yeah, you had. That's the thing. Like this was giving a guy that you really forgot about. So
Yeah, 100%.
that was fun. All right, let's hope this weekend is fun and that there's maybe some Phillies updates and news that breaks. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we could.
I think
but-
your news is going to be Kyle Tucker to the Cubs.
Oh.
I think that's your news
I
you're
don't
going to
think,
break.
yeah, the Phillies are not getting Kyle Tucker, guys. But if they do, we'll have an emergency podcast for it. Don't you worry. But that'll do it for us here at PHLY Phillies. For JP, who pulled out a great trivia for the day, Tyler Zulli, myself, Renee Washington, our great guest, Cody DelMendo. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning in and joining us as we had a chance to talk about the Phillies. Again, every day we'll be live 11 a.m., giving you more updates around the Phillies and, of course, just around Major League Baseball. We've got some live events coming up here at PHLY, some live shows on site that you can be able to check out, I should say, as well. So stay tuned for more updates on allphly.com and on our social media pages. So have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy it as we are getting closer and closer, 12 days away from Christmas. Hanukkah's around the corner. 2025 is in 19 days.
You said we've been in the holiday season for 3 months now, so.
Holiday season started November 1st. Okay, so it's been a month and 12 days. So happy holiday
let's go home.
season. Have a great weekend and see you guys on Monday for more here at PHLY Phillies Podcast. Bye.
We all silly like the mayor.